Let's go ahead and get started. Hello, my name is Domingo Garcia. I'm the national president of LULAC, and we are working on looking to see what we can do to try to get some type of immigration bill passed. By way of background, for those of you who may not know me, I used to be a state representative. In 2001, I'm the co-author of the in-state tuition bill that said if you graduate from a Texas high school, you got in-state tuition, the first DREAM Act. And then we worked in the Obama administration on getting what we called temporary protected status for children of immigrants, which evolved into what is now called DACA. So I am very focused and want to make sure we do everything we can to finish all that work we started in 2001 and now we're in 2022. And one of the things I was looking at is that immigration has been stuck. It gets out of the House, dies in the Senate. Under the prior administration, it was like we might do Dreamers if we do a wall. And it's been things like that and nothing has happened. At the end of the day, immigration in the Republican Party has become a third rail. If you came out as too pro-immigration, then you can be primaried, that's what it's called. And so a lot of politicians that were Republicans and friendly have kind of gone toward the right or they've been defeated. And that's one of the reasons we're looking at what we have as options as we go here into the lame duck session of this Congress. And I found interesting, there was a note that a Republican had filed a bill, an ag bill. Basically, there's a shortage of agricultural workers where people are out that have apples and crops and in the meatpacking plants, and they're looking for workers, and they can't find any. As a result of that, there's this bill to get workers to come in, but it's strictly limited to agricultural workers and seasonal workers. And it seemed like there's an opportunity to work with various sectors of the Republican coalition, the state farm bureaus, the Chamber of Commerce, and other groups that have historically been actually pro-immigration, and get them to file or for us to file a bill that would be a compromise, half a loaf. We do the ag bill. Senator Cornyn has a border security bill that he has pending. Mainly all it does is give humanitarian relief to the border cities that are having this influx of immigrants. And then I think it creates some additional funding for law enforcement on the border. But that was his version of security. It seems to me that if we got Cornyn's bill, I'm going to call it I don't remember the Republican's name, but the ag bill, and then we teamed it with a DREAM Act that just covers dreamers only, and try to put that together as a bipartisan package that hopefully we could pass while the Democrats still control the Congress, and that we would get 10 to 12 votes in the Senate, Republicans, to get to the 60 threshold, because they would vote on this issue of ags and security, and that would give them a cover in a lame duck session to vote for it, or they just got reelected. They're going to be 6 years again, so they don't have to worry about it if they vote for it today. Anyway, that's sort of the concept behind why we were having an emergency meeting, because otherwise, if, as expected, the Republicans take over the House, then I expect no immigration legislation will pass in the next 2 years until the presidential year of 2024. And that's another 2 years deferred. And we don't know what the federal court's going to do with the DACA case, if they'll just declare it unconstitutional and can't get back up, and how that process will work. So there's a lot of variance. And to me, it seems like this is the opportunity, if we focus and work it right and put our allies and our efforts to creating first the bill and then getting Republicans and Democrats to sign off. Anyway, that's the concept, that's the idea, and I'm open to suggestions or thoughts or criticism from anybody regarding that process.
I'd like to start, President Garcia. I think that you're right, you're spot on with the fact that working right now to try to pass something, especially during this lame duck session. We have 6 weeks. If we're going to do something, we have 6 weeks to do it. I believe that the need is there. The need is there definitely. With the Farm Worker Modernization Act, and that's the bill that you spoke about, that one did get stalled in the Senate. They were saying that they just don't have the votes to pass it. However, it did receive a lot of support from the businesses, knowing full well that, especially now, the fact that we have um, a food supply chain issue. We do have a problem with a labor shortage. Now, there are some coalition of business entities that also are interested in passing something to help protect a lot of the young other essential workers, because there are a lot of businesses that don't necessarily do agricultural business, but they are interested in that. And they look at it as also trying to fill a lot of the labor needs. There is an organization called the American Business Immigration Council, and they have several different entities, and they're led by Republican leaders. And their issue is trying to fill the labor need. They know full well that it'll help and boost the economy, but at the same time, the way that they're looking at it is to help boost local economies, but also to help fill that labor supply. Because I think we all know, whether it's healthcare, whether it's the service industry, like hotel, restaurant, and all of those industries, as well as working even in the construction, all of those industries are needing right now is labor. And so a lot of the essential workers are those young ones that right now have DACA. Okay, and so I think finding a way to, if we can, they've always said, if we can build and do something permanent for the dreamers and pass some sort of a form of a DREAM Act, if it's not the DREAM Act, their issue is those are the workers and the age area that are the ones that are going to fill their labor needs. And I think that the opportunity is now. So I'm just echoing what you said, President Garcia, and I'm hoping that we can, as an organization, find a way to do some sort of call to action on this. I fully support this 100%.
Okay.
And I just wanted
Next.
to add that, Mr. President, you were one of the champions for the in-state tuition in Texas, and you led that battle and you led that fight. And so I really wanted to kind of get behind LULAC and get behind you, because I feel like we could definitely have a strong advocate and ally in you, sponsoring and pushing for this bill, and also have our voices heard. Me as a dreamer, having an input on what's going on, and you listening to us, and you listening to the dreamers and what we're pushing for.
And I want to just add to that, Mr. President, thank you so much for putting this together. You do have a few panelists here who are dreamers and share a lot of the same benefits from the in-state tuition. Myself, as a dreamer who benefited from AB 540, in-state tuition, and the California DREAM Act when going to college, all because of the legislation that you pushed in the Texas House, had made a huge difference in my personal life. And I do want to acknowledge that, we have several attendees, people who've raised their hands, that they're able to give their feedback and put it on the chat. And we also have some dreamers that I know of who are also attendees, want to hear from you, any questions that you may have, get some feedback in order to make this possible, because we do feel that this is a last ditch effort to truly push a legislative for our dreamers and for our immigrants, and something that might be feasible in the next couple of weeks that we have in this lame duck session. Otherwise, we might be falling back another 2, 4, who knows how long, because, 2024, we might even have a Republican as president, and we know that's not going to give us anywhere. So I'll leave it at that. If my colleague Mo wants to jump in, I'll want to hear from him too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also as a dreamer, this is definitely the time to act. I've been making lots of calls with different folks around Capitol Hill that have sort of surrounded themselves around this issue for a number of years. And one thing that was sort of a glaring comment from several of them is, even when it comes to sort of the ag jobs and the farm worker bill, that bill is also sort of being held hostage by a lot of sort of the usual characters around this issue that don't want anything to move forward because they're always hoping for more. And so I think this is definitely a unique opportunity for us to give a voice to sort of the voiceless and the folks that may not have that sort of power with a constituency to take action, that we can really give them an opening. And I also reviewed the bill that Senator Cornyn had introduced regarding the additional sort of enforcement. And as President Garcia said, it's a bill that sort of codifies the existing enforcement that we're already seeing on the ground, creates more immigration judges to process the backlog of cases. It's not sort of this traditional idea of enforcement that sort of some of the other immigrant rights organizations label everything with. And so I think this is really a unique opportunity to be realistic and honest with our communities and actually get a resolution when for 10, 15, 20 years we haven't had that. So this is definitely a very unique opportunity. And it's exciting that unlike other groups, we're having this conversation to give it life.
All right, well, I think the next step is we do need to have a plan of action. And the first thing we need to do is we need to draft the bill. And we'd have somebody in a congressional office or a Senate office that say, okay, we're going to put Cornyn's, get more immigration judges and process these asylum seekers in a more efficient, humane way, and dealing with the ag work sector's demands for ag workers and people working in some of those services. And then the main thing, putting as many dreamers as possible under the DREAM Act. I know a lot of dreamers in the past told me, well, Domingo, I'm not going to get it unless my parents do. I think we got to keep it just all dreamers that are eligible, including those that haven't applied. And then we got ags, and then we got a security part to it. And then maybe you can get 11 Republicans to vote with the 50 Democrats and get it passed. But that's a big if. I think we can get out of the House. I think the problem is going to be the Senate. And I think we can talk to Senator Pelosi and tell her this is what we need. And we need a quick vote, and we can't have a lot of debate. And then when we get to the Senate, Cornyn and Connell, Kentucky, Mitch McConnell, I think they have to kind of give some kind of blessing to it to allow their members to vote for it. And if Cornyn is one of the co-sponsors, that may be what we need. And maybe find another Republican moderate, like the guy from Nebraska, is it Sassy, Senator Sassy, or even Senator Grassley from Iowa, just got reelected last night. He's been there forever. They need a lot of ag workers in Iowa. But somebody like that, that's sort of a pragmatic Republican, they get us to the 11 Republicans, and hopefully we keep all the Democrats and we don't lose like a Manchin or a SEMA.
Well, Kristen Sinema also co-sponsored the enforcement bill that Senator Cornyn introduced. And then there's also a Senator Crapo, I believe it is, from Iowa, who's the co-sponsor of the ag bill. So it seems like there's some built-in momentum sort of across the aisle.
So I think if we can put those together, start meeting with the senators, set up a lobbying team of dreamers that can come in, and supporters and allies, and then blitz phone call. Let's call all the farm bureaus and the Chamber of Commerce's and the and then schedule meetings with the key players on Capitol Hill, and see. I don't mind scheduling a meeting with John Cornyn first, and then after Cornyn, following up which are the Republicans we can get, and then making sure like Senator, the Democrats are going to be easy, so it's just getting those Republicans to get us there. Once we have I call it the bipartisan grand compromise, because we're only going to get half a loaf, not even what we need in terms of immigration reform. Well, we get something, and then the business sector gets something, and then the security hawks get something. And I think that's the only way you can get anything done.
And let me interject just real quick here, Domingo. I'm just looking at the Q&As in the chat. And just to piggyback of what you were just mentioning, right? There seems to be a coalition of support that's gathering around here. Maybe there's some movement here that we could help grow our momentum. And just one thing that was announced in the chat was that the Farm Worker Modernization Act is building a coalition between the National Catholic Conference and the U.S. bishops. They're all engaged in helping the United Farm Workers and the Growers Association. So there's this big coalition already happening on the Farm Worker Modernization Act. It might not necessarily be aligned 100% with our bill, but we could probably bring them into the conversation with what we're moving forward.
There's also some hands raised in the audience. I don't know if you want to take any questions already or just read them off of the chat.
I can take questions. I got about 5 more minutes before I got to get to another meeting, but I'm wanting to go ahead and answer any questions you might have from the audience.
Marcela Arayanes, you've had your hand raised for a while.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
Ralph Arianes. So that's my wife's picture there. This is Ralph Arianes. So I'm sure there's some. How you doing, President Domingo and colleagues? This is Ralph.
we
Sorry,
can't
we
hear
lost you there. Can you speak up?
Yeah, this is Ralph Arianes from New Mexico. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yep. Hey, Ralph.
Hi, how you doing, President Domingo Garcia and colleagues? So who are the congressional representatives that have championed, DREAM Act legislation and comprehensive immigration reform in the past? I mean, I'm sure there's already.
Sorry, we lost you, Ralph.
Pardon?
Ralph, can you type this into the chat? Your audio seems to be disconnected. I also wanted to read out Saida Laguna Morales. She has made a comment. She's saying, thank you for all the great work and support. She's wondering if there's any awareness on the part that certain organizations/employers may sponsor their employees if there's a demand for employers to adjust their employee status, and it may add pressure to getting the bill done to cover more folks. That's a question, I want to leave it up to this group. I think it'd be part of the legislation if we want to add that to the language.
I'd like to address that actually. Many times employers will be some of the ones who are going to be the best advocates also. When you have business leaders contact the members of the Senate or Congress, those are the ones that actually help drive a lot of this, because when they're especially when you're talking about the Kirsten Cinemas, for example, I know her and I've known her for over 20 years. Okay, so I know her on a personal basis. And I know that right now, what is moving her is a lot of the needs on the immigration, a lot of the needs when it comes to the labor. And if she gets a phone call from a business leader here in Arizona, that's going to move her. And I think if you're in a position where you can have your boss make a phone call to a member of Congress, that moves mountains.
Okay. I agree. That's why I said we need to get the businesses involved, and we should have meetings with them, even if it's web meetings or Zoom meetings, to get them on board, have them sign letters from the Farm Bureau, the Federation of Farm Bureaus, the American Chamber of Commerce, and all these business entities you talk about, especially the growers, and make that happen. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question from Daniel Rangel. Rangel, are you there?
Hi. Hello, Mr. President. There are thousands of dreamers that do not have DACA. And what will be the plan for them? Will they be included in the bill, or will they be excluded?
My plan is to include them in the bill. Like I said, all dreamers, but we wouldn't be able to include the parents. So all dreamers, even those that haven't applied but that are eligible, would be part of the bill. Did I answer your question, Daniel?
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you.
Also have another question from Lupe.
Lupe, you're on mute. You can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Yes, thank
Go
you. Mr. President, I do agree with you that we need to keep that separate parents and DACA. When we were up in the Hill some years back, we did have a lot of support from the Republican representation on the Hill. I don't know what happened that all of a sudden it's like there was a totally different outlook, and they kind of went the opposite direction. I don't know what happened. Maybe you have a better assessment of that, but we were so close to getting some bills passed. And but there was that question that some of them did not want to include the parents, and that was kind of like the challenge that we were going through. So I agree with you, and I think you're on the right track, and we just need to move forward with all these efforts that have been discussed here tonight. I think Hornetsville, we can combine it with, like you said, with something else. It's a good start, and I think we can be on the right track with that.
Thank you, Lupe. I do want to answer one of the questions on the chat. This is from Yvonne Gonzalez Duncan, talking about adding pressure from ag owners, restaurant, hotel owners, reminding them of what happened in COVID. I believe you addressed this already, that we do want to include the chambers and some of the business owners, because they're some of the bigger advocates when it comes to pushing for immigration reform. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but was that part of the intention with the bill?
Well, I think in order to move forward with trying to push this bill, we're going to need a coalition of business leaders. I think building coalitions to stand behind what we're trying to do is to try to find some way to make a pathway for, for legalization, for permanent protections for dreamers is what's going to, we're going to have the rally, whether it's business leaders. If you look at it, faith leaders will stand behind this. You have groups of educators that will stand behind this. I mean, the coalition, if you think about it, could be expanded. Right now, we're solely talking about a lot of employers, to fill the job, the demands. And if you look at the age group of the folks that we're talking about, these are the workers where we have the labor shortage right now. Okay, and that's why the businesses are going to be probably the first ones to stand in line, we hope, in this. Done right, we could move a lot of Republicans with business leaders, or no?
Right. I'm going to have to leave, but I'd like for y'all to look at, I want y'all to continue the webinar, and Lydia is our chair of immigration for LULAC, and of course, Jose Barrera, our state director of California, Delma, our VP for young adults, and Mohammad working with our dreamers. If we could do an action plan, somebody schedules I'm just going to call it real quick, schedules meetings, drafts the bill, drafts a compromise bill that we have input from Cornyn staff, Schumer staff, I don't know, Alex Padilla, maybe. And then we have the bill that we then start trying to get movement on. We'll get the leaders of the House to pass it, and then we got to go get the 11 votes. And like I said, time is of the essence. We're talking 60 days, and it's hard to pass anything on the Hill, but this may be something that we can expedite by limiting the hours of no amendments. For example, when the bill is done, we don't take amendments from the Democrats or the Republicans. The Republicans are going to want walls and border patrol agents and police, and some of the people from our left are going to want immigration reform for all 20 million people out there, and none of those are going to pass. So it has to be just, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to vote on. So the bill gets drafted, scheduling meetings with sponsors on the Hill, bringing people to the Hill to lobby for it, and then third, reaching out to allies, as Lydia was talking about, in terms of the Chamber of Commerce, of farm bureaus, business sectors that would be supportive, as well as the National Conference of Catholic Bishops. There's, I think, this Texas, Southern Baptist thing has come out for immigration. So we can build that synergy where those Republicans are getting hit by religious groups, business groups and community groups, and they feel like they're got cover because they're going to get attacked on Fox News and they're going to be attacked on talk radio. And then third, look to see how to build a media campaign in letters to the editor in the Washington Post, the New York Times, the LA Times, guest appearances on national TV shows promoting the system is broken. You know, it's not open borders, but it's not closed borders. So we need people of good faith who really want to fix it to come forward. Otherwise, if you just want to run commercials about immigrants crossing the border, you can do that. And ain't going to change nothing on the ground. And it hasn't so far. So I think building that campaign, having the message from a professional media team to help us get that across, I think are going to be really cool things that we need to do right away. And then lastly, you know, getting, you know, teams to work. Like I'm just going to use West, all the senators on the West Coast, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and so on, all the Midwest, all the South, all the Southwest, all the Northeast, so that those senators are getting letters and calls from constituents, voters, dreamers, business people. And when we're creating sort of a groundswell of support for this bill. So I got to get going, but that would be my strong recommendation to everybody. And Lydia, I'll let you and Jose and Delma kind of continue with the ideas and suggestions for ideas. But I think we can do this. I really feel that we got, si se puede.
Thank you, President Garcia.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna add my email on the chat. I know we might not get to everybody's questions, but I want to have my email out there for anybody that wants to follow up with questions, comments, allies that y'all think we need to reach out to or have in our radar, any information that y'all want to share with us regarding you know, us passing this bill, just send it our way, and we'll definitely have another call moving forward when we have a little bit more of a strategic plan. But I think it's a good starting point just to get everybody's ideas and, you know, things together so we can kind of strategize and, like President Garcia mentioned, have a concrete plan on all of the United States and all the attack points that we're going to need to use.
No, this is definitely something that, you know, you've heard the saying, you know, now or never, but right now we have this golden opportunity, pero tenemos que movernos ahorita. You know, this is when we're indeed mobilizing during this lame duck session. Y ahorita más que nunca se puede, because the need is there. So taking advantage of that need and those potential partners, those allies, I'm hoping that the folks that are watching this right now can shoot Delma an email and say, oh, you know what, I know this chamber out in, you know, in the Bay Area, you know, that is willing to work with us, because we need some of those folks, some of those leaders to be talking heads, because we're going to use them and engage them to do the letters to the editor, to do the help us push and drive this. Okay, even though this is going to come in from us, but we need them to help fuel it. O sea, I don't know if I'm explaining myself right, but does that make sense what I'm saying? So
Yeah, definitely.
That makes sense. And I want to read another comment from Hector to get Telemundo involved. Absolutely. I think we need a lot of media push, especially, you know, I would challenge our media allies to also interview dreamers in leadership roles, because this keeps the conversation flowing.
If we have dreamers on this call, which I'm sure we have a bunch, if you want to share your story with us, you know, I know a lot of people are still scared to share their stories, and especially in this climate. But if we are always scared and we are always hiding, we're never going to come to light. And I think right now is the time to make that push and to give a face to this legislation, and we are the face of it. So if any of the dreamers on this call want to help us with their stories, you know, we could create videos, little snippets. We don't have to give personal information about yourself, but just put a face to the story, and more faces that are out there, and people start realizing that we're your neighbors, we're your teachers, we're your friends. We are not just these immigrants that are here, right? We are in all of our community, and I think that would definitely help fuel the movement and push it further.
And I know we do have a few dreamers, and I'm just happy to see them on the chat as part of the attendees. And I know you guys have been doing amazing work. I just want to give you a big shout out, but I won't mention your names unless you are willing to do that yourself.
Now we have another question from Meredith Machen from Santa Fe. She's had her hand up for a while.
Hello, I'm Meredith Machen, Legal and Voters, and I'm on the National Immigration Interest Group. And I came onto the call late because I was on another call. And so you may have already gone over this, but we know that the House has already passed the, basically their version of the DREAM Act. We only have a few days, when the Congress resumes after this midterm election break, and basically Congress has to pass a budget, and that's going to be the most important thing. And lots of other issues are going to try to get through before the end of December. And since, the process for any bill is so lengthy, what we really need to do is at least get the ones that have already gone through the hearings or almost finalized. And Senator Dick Durbin has, I think it's Senate Bill 264, and he's had the same bill for now over 10 years. It was a bipartisan bill with Lindsey Graham, and it has gone from, how they have to have the readings on the floor of each chamber before it goes to committees. It's already had at least one hearing in the Senate Judiciary, and we need to push for that. It may not be perfect, it may not have all the things you want, but essentially, we can't, there's no hope to try to get a new bill through at this point. Basically, you could get a reconciled bill from the one if you do a side-by-side of HR 6, the American Dream and Promise Act of 2021, which passed the House March 18th, 2021. And then you try to get the Senate Bill 264 through, then, that would be good. Plus, the farm, I don't have all the numbers for the farm worker modernization and so on, but there's no time to start in this session from scratch. And since we've been working on these same bills for 10 sessions in a row, we just need to get something through. So I thank you for your for your work, but I can send, if you put in an email to Lydia, or to who should I send it to, some talking points on those two bills, on DACA and
I think that if you send it to Delma could probably share it with the team. I think Delma is going to be our point of contact to sharing and exchanging information, if that's okay, Delma. Yeah, okay. Meredith, thank you for that, because I know the concern is regarding starting from scratch, because they have to go through a series of hearings, just like with any legislative process, and there is no time. One of the things that you mentioned, was perhaps just moving on some of the bills that already were there. For example, I know that Senator Dick Durbin does chair the Senate Judiciary Committee, and he did say after the October 31st ruling on DACA, he met with several DACA advocates. And he basically told them, look, we just don't have the 60 votes, and we're certainly not going to, do anything right now, right before the election. This is something that was echoed by Chuck Schumer. Okay. And I had, we were meeting with Senator Schumer on a separate issue, and then we just kind of briefly touched on this. And Senator Schumer told us the same thing. He's like, you guys, this is like way too close to the election. we can talk about this after the election. I think you're right, Meredith, and I think that, you know, possibly asking them to, you know, to dust off the bills that are currently, if they already passed the House and they're stuck in the Senate, to dust it off. But, you know, what we want is clear, and you know, and there's got to be a reason why, you know, it didn't get a lot of support from the Republicans. Let's look at that. You know, though we want to keep it laser focused, but you know, we just are hoping to get something quickly, expeditiously, before the end of the year. And I think that is everyone's goal. And I think right now, in having this initial conversation with either Durbin, with Schumer, with Cinema, so that they can guide us and tell us what the best path to take. You know, because I know that even Kirsten Cinema wants this. Okay, you know, she has a lot of pull. So I think, you know, maybe she can also direct us on which would be the best approach. But, you know, thank you for that, Meredith. Oh, and don't forget to send the talking points to Delma.
And I wanted to give a shout out to Daniel Rangel. He's a dreamer as well, and he wanted to mention that he would be interested in sharing his story to lobby in Congress. And, you know, thank you so much for that, because that's definitely what we need more of. Because, you know, a lot of people don't have a image of what a dreamer is, right? And I know as a dreamer, we are one of the people in our society that don't have a criminal record. You know, most of us are educated or hardworking, we pay taxes. So things like that are really important to push in this movement, to, you know, and the economic aspect of it as well, how much we contribute to society. So thank you, Daniel. Please send me an email and we can definitely get you on board to help us with that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, one of our biggest obstacles sort of in this battle is going to be sort of representing the reality of the dreamer population. So our biggest hurdle in sort of this strategy is not going to be lining up business interests or faith leaders or those sorts of things. It's really going to be carrying sort of the spear of legitimacy and saying that there's a lot of people saying what the right thing to do is, but what we're saying is the actual right thing to do. And so that's going to be our biggest hurdle. So Daniel, and for other folks that are sort of dreamers, don't have DACA, whatever the case is, we need you guys to sort of be in the forefront. We need you guys to find more dreamers like you that can say, my parents came here to this country, they made a sacrifice so that I can excel. We're not being selfish by asking for this. This is what we want. So we really need to figure out a way to strategize so that our voice can rise up as the legitimate voice that folks should listen to. And that's going to be really our biggest obstacle in this next 2, 3, 4 weeks. We're very fortunate that we have President Garcia with the relationships and the connections that he's been building over a lifetime, that he's sort of willing to leverage that with our voices. The biggest battle for us is going to be to raise the dreamer voice with legitimacy. And so we're going to definitely need a lot of help in regard to that, because a lot of other organizations that supposedly are fighting on our behalf are going to be our biggest enemies in this sort of thing that we're building. So just want to leave folks with that.
I completely agree. I think one of the biggest push that I want from this meeting is to get more dreamers involved in their own futures. And that means you advocating for, you know, for what you want and standing and with us together, and not letting all these other organizations or all these other people tell us what we need, but us telling them what we need, and us getting our allies and our friends to push behind us.
I wonder if I want to do some sort of plan of action and look at next steps. You know, because again, time is of the essence. I'm hoping that maybe, several of us have relationships with members of Congress or with folks in the Senate. Can we start scheduling phone calls so that we can start looking realistically at where we are and what it's going to take, so that we can have maybe some conversations on this, and just that way we can just kind of lay out our plan and say, this is what we want to do, right? And so and it'll give us a starting point. The next thing I also want to do is for the folks that are on this call, that are participating, Delma is collecting, if you have your story, I mean, I would love to hear if you're a teacher, if you're a nurse, if you are, if you're struggling, because of in-state tuition issues, or, I want to hear those stories. And I think maybe sometimes 2 or 3 paragraphs, send them to Delma, because those are the ones and the stories that we're going to need as we move forward and we start advocating. But if you have relationships with chambers, please also say, look, because we're making different lists here. Okay, please put this in with these are business leaders that are willing to do letters to the editor. We need also talking heads besides us, because, can you imagine a co-opt letter with President Garcia and the chamber, right? President Garcia and, the Association of Educators, things like that. So if you know some folks that are willing to put their name on letters to the editor on why this is important, please also send that information to Delma and say, I know someone who is willing to lock arms with us in this, on this. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at just planning on next steps of what we need to do so we can start getting the ball rolling. No sé si.
It's a multifaceted campaign, absolutely, and I think part of it is the story sharing and the media approach. We do have some people who have raised their hands. I saw Jose Munoz raise his hand as the most recent person. I haven't heard him speak, so I want to invite him over. Jose Munoz Tocayo, you're on. Please let us know what you have to say.
Okay, so yeah, I just want to share my personal story as a dreamer. I graduated with 2 different majors in 2021. And after graduation, I joined a hunger strike in Washington, D.C. that was for dreamers, TPS workers, and farm workers and other essential workers. And I just remember that, it was a lot of hard work going into that. And the strike itself was, kind of difficult at times. And, just trying to bring awareness to the plight of, essential workers and people who just contribute to society, and not having a pathway to citizenship. Unfortunately, we were trying to add like an addition to the infrastructure bill to the pathway to citizenship for essential workers and dreamers who were undocumented, and that did not happen. But I still stayed with the organization one of the organizations that set it up is called SEIU-UHW, and it's a labor union for healthcare workers. And I decided to stick with that organization, and I'm still working with them. I do a lot of work with them in their political department. And for me, it's just very important to do it because as a dreamer, I can't vote. So it is my way to kind of contribute to society and also to have my voice heard. So what I do in the political department a lot is phone banking and organizing phone banks for local elections in California. And I love doing it because it's my way to have my voice heard, even though I can't directly vote. I can help other people who would vote like I would vote, but who may not be as interested or who might not be turning out to vote, to turn them out to vote. So
Thank you so much, Tocayo. I appreciate you sharing your story. It's important for us dreamers to really be advocates, even if it means not being able to vote, but mobilizing other people. So appreciate your story. I know that's probably very inspirational for a lot of us, and many of us have experienced some sort of advocacy or want to get involved a little bit more. So stories like these are crucial to share. Congratulations on recently graduating from college, and also, being in the workforce, especially in labor. I think labor is going to be a big component of mobilizing our dreamers. I know we're short on time, so I want to toss this back to my colleagues, see if there's any closing remarks that we want to make or any other additional comments in the chat.
I love Jose's story. I just want to say that I love the fact that he has already participated in some days of action, and SEIU is a great partner. I think, building coalitions, we all, besides our involvement with LULAC, we all have also relationships, whether it's, organizing or whether it's employers or whatever, with other folks that can be our allies in this. And SEIU is a great ally. And I hope that, Jose, maybe you can also entice them to help us with this. So
I just want to thank the people that are already sending me emails. I love it. And I just want to leave y'all with the time is now. This is an emergency meeting because we're like very short on time. So just go to bed tonight and think of every way possible that we can make this happen. Because if we really push and work together at it, we can definitely make it happen. Sí se puede, pero todos tenemos que poner nuestra parte.
sí se puede, sí se puede. Gracias a todos. Buenas noches.
Thank you, everyone.